Hello, makers. It's that strange time between Christmas and New Year's where you still have all the Christmas stuff out and kind of don't know what day it is and what's going on. And so I thought this would be a great time to share some very quick Christmas cards that I made using Whimsy Stamps products. And so this is the second type of card that I made. And I started with the Tartan paper pack. There were just some great plaid patterns in here and checkerboard patterns that I thought would be super for making borders for the beautiful scenery pages from the Dickens paper pack. And so I went through and I pulled some plaids from that pack. And then remember in the last tutorial, I took a bunch of these papers from the Dickens pack and cut them in half. And in today's, I'm going to use them for an A2 card. And I'm going to use this same Holidays Sentiments stamp set for these cards as well as the ones that I used yesterday. So I did use a few more New Year's for today's. And then also I cut out something to stamp those sentiments on from this Quick Strips stamp set. I'm adding today the Mix and Match scallops and the Sprinkles scallops rectangular die sets. And I went through and I kind of matched up the plaids with the Dickens papers. So I'm just kind of showing you what I decided on for borders out of the plaids for these different scenery pieces from Dickens. And you may notice there are a few that are missing. And so I added some of those to the cards that I made yesterday. So I went through and I cut out the sprinkle scallops, the largest sprinkle scallops and the largest scallops rectangle dies are the ones that I use for the borders for these. So I cut all of those. So here's the mix and match scallop die. And so I cut all of those from the plaids. And then I used the largest rectangle dies from each of those to cut out part of the scene from the Dickens papers. And so as you could see there, I just kind of moved the rectangle around until I felt like I had the part of the scene that I thought would look best on the A2 card. And this one was a little bit more of a challenge because the tree was bigger than the rectangle, but I ended up cutting off the bottom of the tree and I really felt like it worked. So I just continued that way, cutting out the tartan plaids that I had chosen and then cutting out the seams. And once I had all of those done, I noticed that I needed a little something more. So I cut some gold craft stock paper, just a quarter of an inch or so bigger than the largest rectangle for the Dickens portion. And then I thought that the gold just added a nice touch. And so now I'm starting to assemble my cards. I'm putting the tartan plaid on just an A2 card base and then adding that metallic craft stock that I cut. And I just cut that with a trimmer for each of those. So put that on there. And then I didn't attach that. So I set the picture portion aside because I have one more thing that I'm going to do to that, just like I did yesterday. So I just continued that way with all of these, putting the plaid and then the metallic piece on each of the card bases. So those were done and ready to go. And then I set aside the photo uh, pieces so that I would be ready to do this portion. So same thing as yesterday, except today I only added rock candy clear glitter. I did not add the mica to these. So I did the same thing. I set the Dickens pieces in my splat box, did just a little bit of distress resist spray on there, sprinkled some of the distress rock candy glitter over it. It acted like an adhesive holding that glitter in place here and there. You don't want a whole lot of glitter, but it just added a little snowy effect on the top. And so I just kind of tapped off any excess and then continued through. I did all of them the same way. Spray a little bit of resist spray, sprinkle a little glitter, tap off any excess, and then set them aside to dry. And this part will go very quickly, much quicker than with the all of the ones that you cut in half because you only have one per sheet of paper for today's cards. So this will go a lot faster. But I just love that sparkly little detail. And then once they're dry, you want to go ahead and add those on top of the gold. And there you go. Your cards are almost finished. So I went ahead and put something heavy on top after I adhered it so that it would dry nice and flat. And I just kept adding as I went. And if you get any adhesive onto the gold, I usually like to wipe it off before it dries so that that gold stays nice and shiny and doesn't have any adhesive on it. Now it's time for us to do our sentiments. So I was running short on time for Christmas, and so I did have a few Christmas ones, but I also stamped several New Year's sentiments because I knew some of them would probably arrive after Christmas. And so I noticed when I stamped that one that I needed to move it to the left a little bit more. And so you can see how in the opening, I repositioned the stamp and I'm going to give it another try and make sure that I got that centered. And so that's how you do that. And I love that technique of just putting a die cut piece back into a piece of cardstock that's been die cut, and that way you get it stamped perfectly every single time. And I love that tip. I got it from my friend Joy, and it has served me well over the years. So there you go. You can see how quick and easy it is to stamp a bunch of sentiments that way. Now for the inside, I got my Sweet and Sassy stamps by Nina B. And these are the Christmas hymn word art stamps. Sweet and Sassy stamps has been renamed. It is now Creative Worship, but I used the Hark the Herald Angels Sing stamp. These are still available from Creative Worship. And so I stamped them, I cut them out, and then I also put those on a little bit of gold craft stock and put them on the inside. And now that I have my sentiments stamped, they needed a little something just like the cards yesterday. And so I got out this calls for confetti, champagne confetti mix. You could use gold confetti, you could use blue confetti, you could use whatever color that you have, silver, any of those. But for me, I had the champagne on hand, so I went ahead and pulled the gold and the silver ones out of there. And I put one on each side of each of my sentiments, added a little glue, and then stuck the little confetti pieces down, one on each side of the words, just for a little bit more gold shine. And once I had that done and they were dry, I added 3 little adhesive pieces, squares, onto the backs of my sentiments, and I put these all pretty much in the same place on all of them. I put them down at the bottom, just above the edge of the border, the scallop border on all of them, so that you could see the beautiful scenery, but you also got your sentiment. On the cards that I made yesterday, I put some of them at the top, some of them at the bottom, and these I felt like I wanted them all down at the bottom so that I didn't cover up any of the beautiful scenes on these cards, and I feel like it really works there. So this is what I ended up with. So here's one of my New Year cards. You can see that sparkle from the Distress glitter. Love the touch of gold there around the outside edge. And this one I think looks so celebratory, especially with that green and red plaid around it. So much fun. I love how this one is, the orientation's a little bit different on that one. And on this one, I like that instead of them all being um, vertical, some of them horizontal. I think that church scene is one of my favorites from this pack. I love this black and red and white plaid. I think it's really striking and it really pulls out the red house on that. And this red gingham just gives it a very homespun Christmas feel. And there's the tree. See, even though I cut off the bottom, I still think it looks absolutely fabulous. And the last one with that tree just hanging on to a couple of those little red leaves. So there we have it, a very easy card to make and to put together as a kind of an assembly line like the cards yesterday. So I hope that this gave you some ideas for using some of the Whimsy stamps, uh, Dickens Christmas papers, and some of those tartan plaids with the dies to make some quick cards. And I hope this helps encourage you to maybe use this time in between Christmas and New Year's to uh, get out some of the Christmas stuff that you have just been using and make a few things to get ahead for next year. Thanks so much for watching, and I want to wish you a very creative day.